At Camp Liberty, Elena Navarro had been invisible for 3 years. The quiet woman serving breakfast at 0600, lunch at 1200, and evening at 1800 to Alpha Team at the remote Idaho base. She wore her cap low, kept her head down, and never said more than, "What can I get you?" to the elite operators who came through her line. When the hostile assault team breached the base perimeter and zip-tied her Alpha Team brothers, Elena didn't scream like the other kitchen staff. Instead, she calmly removed her apron, reached under the industrial freezer, and pulled out a weapon that made the nearest terrorist's eyes widen in terror. That's when everyone realized the mess hall cook wasn't who she appeared to be. Camp Liberty rose from the mountainous terrain of Idaho like a concrete fortress. The base housed 300 personnel, but its crown jewel was Alpha Team, 12 of the most elite warriors in the United States military, men who disappeared into the night on missions that would never appear in official records. Elena Navarro, 29 years old, had been working in the mess hall for exactly 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days. Sergeant Elena Navarro, formerly of the 75th Ranger Regiment, had once been one of the most promising soldiers in the Army's elite airborne infantry. She'd completed Ranger School at the top of her class, earned expert marksman qualifications with 7 different weapon systems, and had been selected for the most challenging special operations assignments the military could offer. The transformation from elite warrior to mess hall cook hadn't happened overnight. It had begun during her final mission as an active ranger, an operation in Syria that required her to eliminate a high-value target who turned out to be much younger than she'd expected. The successful completion of that mission earned her commendations and promotion offers, but it also shattered something fundamental inside her that couldn't be repaired with medals or recognition. Elena had requested transfer to non-combat roles, citing personal reasons that her commanding officers respected without requiring detailed explanations. Warriors who'd given everything in service to their country deserved the right to step back when they needed to. She'd been assigned to food service at Camp Liberty, where her military training was still valuable for logistics and organization, but where she wouldn't be required to make life-or-death decisions about other human beings. For 3 years, the arrangement had worked perfectly. Elena found peace in the routine of feeding people instead of fighting them. She took satisfaction in seeing Alpha Team well-fed and ready for their missions, knowing she was supporting their operations without having to participate directly in the violence that was their profession. Alpha Team had accepted her presence with the casual indifference that professional warriors showed toward support personnel. To them, Elena was simply Mom, the cook who made sure they ate well and who could be counted on to have hot coffee ready whenever they returned from missions. The team leader was Commander Nathaniel Kincaid, a 15-year veteran of special warfare who'd earned his position through tactical brilliance and unshakable calm under pressure. His weapons specialist, Chief Adrian Calder, had noticed things about Elena that others missed: the way she moved through the kitchen with tactical awareness, how her eyes constantly scanned for threats even while serving food, the fact that she kept her back to walls and always knew where the exits were. What none of them knew was that Elena's daily routine included more than just food preparation. Every morning at 0430, before anyone else was awake, she would conduct her own private inspection of the mess hall security protocols. Under the industrial freezer, wrapped in waterproof plastic and hidden behind cleaning supplies that only she ever accessed, was a cache of weapons and equipment that she'd assembled over 3 years of careful acquisition. It wasn't paranoia, it was preparation. Elena had learned during her combat years that violence could arrive without warning, and that survival often depended on being ready for possibilities that other people never considered. On October 15th, everything went wrong. Elena was in the middle of preparing breakfast when the first explosion shook Camp Liberty's outer perimeter. The blast was distant enough that most personnel initially dismissed it as routine ordnance disposal or training exercises, but Elena's combat-trained ears immediately identified the sound as incoming rocket-propelled grenades. The base alarm system activated 30 seconds later, filling the air with the distinctive wail that signaled Condition Red, enemy contact, all personnel to defensive positions. But through the mess hall windows, Elena could see soldiers running toward predetermined defensive positions while officers shouted orders and coordinated response protocols. But something was wrong with the pattern. The explosions were coming from multiple directions simultaneously, suggesting a coordinated assault by forces with detailed knowledge of the base's defensive layout. More concerning was the fact that the attackers seemed to be targeting specific facilities rather than conducting random harassment fire. The third wave of explosions was different, closer, more precise, targeting the base's communication equipment and power generation systems. Elena watched through the kitchen windows as systematic destruction eliminated Camp Liberty's ability to call for reinforcement or coordinate with higher command. That's when she saw the infiltration. Moving through the smoke and confusion of the ongoing bombardment, figures in dark tactical gear were penetrating the base perimeter through sections that should have been impregnable. They moved with military precision, using proper cover and advanced techniques that spoke to extensive training and combat experience. These weren't local insurgents or opportunist fighters. These were professional soldiers conducting a carefully planned operation. Elena counted at least 20 infiltrators in the first wave, all armed with modern weapons and equipment that suggested significant financial backing and logistical support. They were advancing towards specific targets within the base, including the command center, communications facility, and her blood ran cold as she realized their pattern, the Alpha Team barracks. Through her kitchen window, Elena watched in growing horror as the attackers systematically surrounded the building where her team was housed. Alpha Team was trapped inside, caught off guard during what should have been routine downtime between missions. The battle for the Alpha Team barracks lasted exactly 7 minutes. Elena timed it by the kitchen clock while she watched America's most elite warriors make their last stand against overwhelming odds. The operators fought with the professional skill and coordinated tactics that had made them legendary, but they were facing an enemy that had prepared specifically for this engagement and brought superior numbers and positioning to bear. One by one, she watched them fall, not killed, but captured. The attackers were using non-lethal weapons, tranquilizer darts, and restraining devices that suggested they wanted prisoners rather than casualties. Commander Kincaid was the first to go down. Chief Adrian Calder lasted 30 seconds longer, managing to eliminate 2 attackers before being overwhelmed by the remaining forces. Within 10 minutes of the initial assault, Alpha Team had been captured and was being systematically zip-tied and prepared for transport. Elena watched through the kitchen windows as the vehicles disappeared into the Idaho wilderness and felt something fundamental shift inside her. For 3 years, she'd been Sergeant Elena Navarro, retired, a woman who'd chosen peace over war and found satisfaction in supporting others rather than fighting herself. But watching her team being taken prisoner by enemy forces had awakened something that no amount of kitchen duty could put back to sleep. She removed her cap and apron with movements that were calm, deliberate, and absolutely deadly in their implications. Under the industrial freezer, her hands found the waterproof case that contained equipment she'd hoped never to touch again. The weight of the tactical knife felt familiar in her hands, as did the compact pistol and the equipment that would allow her to track and engage targets in hostile territory. For the first time in 3 years, Sergeant Elena Navarro was back on active duty.